The Vancouver housing market has been in turmoil for months, but recent data confirms it. The collapse is real, and the repercussions will affect every aspect of the city, from its economy to its residents. Vancouver, once one of the hottest real estate markets in the world, has experienced a staggering 40% drop in home values. These are not just numbers on a chart, they represent the destruction of wealth, the loss of hope for many homebuyers, and the collapse of a system that once seemed unshakable. In this unprecedented crisis, families, developers, and investors alike are scrambling to understand how things went so wrong. In 2023, Vancouver's housing market was projected to hit record highs, continuing the upward trajectory that had made the city a global hotspot for real estate investment. But instead of continuing this boom, the market crashed. By mid-2024, home values had dropped by 40%, a massive blow that has left residents reeling. This isn't just a temporary slump. The effects are being felt across the entire economy. What seemed like a minor downturn is now a full-blown housing crisis, with no signs of recovery in sight. The scale of this collapse is difficult to comprehend. According to recent reports from StatsCan, CMHC, and RBC, Vancouver has lost an estimated $30 billion in property values. These losses are not just felt by wealthy investors or developers, but also by everyday homeowners who bought into the market during the peak. For many, this crash has wiped out years of hard-earned equity, leaving them underwater on their mortgages. These losses have sent shockwaves through the entire city, leading to an increase in foreclosures, bankruptcies, and an overall sense of economic instability. Vancouver's once booming real estate market was built on a fragile foundation. The city's housing crisis has long been fueled by a combination of factors: low interest rates, foreign investment, and an ever-growing population. For years, Vancouver was seen as a safe bet for anyone looking to invest in real estate. Buyers were eager to get a piece of the market, driven by the belief that prices would only continue to rise. But that belief was shattered when the market finally reached its breaking point. With home values plummeting, the same investors who were once making millions are now facing massive losses. The collapse began slowly but picked up steam as the year went on. The first signs of trouble appeared in early 2024 when home sales started to decline, signaling that something was amiss. Initially, it was seen as just a temporary dip, but the situation quickly escalated. By the time summer rolled around, home prices had begun to freefall, and the housing market was in full-blown crisis mode. Developers, once at the forefront of the housing boom, are now facing bankruptcy at an alarming rate. Thousands of construction workers have been laid off as projects grind to a halt. Developers who had once been eager to build new homes in Vancouver are now pulling out of projects, unable to secure financing. The entire housing market has come to a standstill. The chaos doesn't stop with developers. Mortgage lenders, who had been all too eager to approve loans during the height of the market, are now tightening their belts. In the past, getting a mortgage in Vancouver was almost a guarantee. Today, however, lenders are pulling back, refusing to offer loans to buyers who are deemed too risky. For many, this means the dream of homeownership is slipping further out of reach. Those who already own homes are finding themselves in precarious positions as property values continue to fall. Many are stuck in homes they can no longer afford, unable to sell for a reasonable price. The ripple effect of this crisis is being felt in other sectors as well. Vancouver's once thriving construction industry is in freefall, with thousands of jobs lost as projects are canceled or put on hold. The city's economy is reeling from the shockwave caused by the collapse of the housing market. Unemployment is soaring, particularly in industries closely tied to real estate. Many workers who once relied on the booming construction industry for their livelihoods are now finding themselves without work. The financial instability in Vancouver is affecting all aspects of life, from retail to tech, as companies reduce their workforce in response to the economic downturn. The real cost of this crisis is not just financial, it's personal. Families who have invested in Vancouver real estate are now facing the harsh reality of losing their homes. Many of these families had put everything they had into buying a house, believing that their investment would pay off. Instead, they are now facing foreclosure, with little recourse to recover their losses. For some, the stress of this situation is overwhelming, leading to a rise in mental health issues. The financial strain of losing a home, coupled with the uncertainty of what comes next, has left many Vancouver residents in a state of despair. What's even more alarming is that this crisis is far from over. While the situation in Vancouver may seem dire, it's actually just the beginning of a much larger collapse that could affect other parts of Canada as well. The housing market in Vancouver is a bellwether for the entire country. If Vancouver, one of the most expensive cities in the world, can experience such a dramatic collapse, what does that mean for other cities that are already struggling with high housing costs? The reality is that Vancouver's collapse could be the first domino in a series of economic failures that could drag the entire country into a recession. The Canadian government has already been forced to intervene in an attempt to stabilize the market. The Bank of Canada raised interest rates to slow down the housing market, but this only made things worse. Higher rates have made it even more difficult for buyers to afford homes, while also increasing the financial burden on those who already own property. In addition, the government's foreign buyer ban, which was supposed to cool the market, has had little effect. Instead, it has only served to alienate foreign investors, who are now pulling their money out of Vancouver's real estate market. Politicians have been slow to respond to the crisis, and their actions have only exacerbated the problem. There is a growing sense of frustration among Vancouver residents, many of whom feel that their government has failed them. The political contradictions in the way the housing crisis is being handled are becoming more apparent by the day. On one hand, the government is trying to cool the housing market with regulations like the foreign buyer ban, while on the other hand, it is still encouraging real estate development in the city. These mixed messages have only served to confuse buyers and investors, and they are a big part of why the market is in such disarray. The human cost of this crisis cannot be overstated. Thousands of people are losing their homes, and the financial strain is causing severe stress for families. For many, this crisis represents the loss of a dream of homeownership, of stability, and of a future in Vancouver. Young people, in particular, are being hit hardest. For them, the dream of owning a home in Vancouver is quickly slipping away. The once vibrant city, known for its beautiful landscapes and thriving economy, is now a shadow of its former self. As the housing market continues to collapse, the true extent of the damage becomes clearer. The city is facing not only a housing crisis but also an economic crisis that could last for years. The question now is, what will happen next? Will Vancouver be able to recover from this collapse, or is this the beginning of a long-term decline? As the city grapples with this unprecedented crisis, the future remains uncertain, and the stakes couldn't be higher. In the next section, we'll explore the long-term effects of this crisis and what it means for the future of Vancouver and Canada as a whole. We'll also take a closer look at the real threat that lies ahead, the possibility of a nationwide recession triggered by the collapse of Vancouver's housing market. Stay tuned, because the worst may still be yet to come. As Vancouver's housing market continues to spiral out of control, the true magnitude of the collapse becomes increasingly clear. The decline that started in 2024 is no longer just a localized issue. It is a clear signal that Vancouver's economy, and potentially the broader Canadian economy, is in deep trouble. With home values having already plummeted by a staggering 40%, the damage is not just financial, it's psychological, social, and structural. Vancouver's residents, once proud of their city's prosperity, are now facing a reality where the dream of owning a home is slipping further away, leaving thousands to grapple with uncertainty, financial ruin, and a loss of stability that was once guaranteed. The impact of this collapse has not been limited to just the real estate market. As home values fall and the economy grinds to a halt, sectors across the city are beginning to feel the ripple effects. Vancouver's tech sector, which once thrived thanks to a booming housing market that fueled consumer spending and investment, is now shrinking. Companies are scaling back hiring, layoffs are becoming more common, and startups that once saw Vancouver as a prime location are now considering other cities to escape the rising cost of doing business. For many entrepreneurs, the rise and fall of the real estate market were closely tied to their success, and as the housing sector falters, so do their opportunities. Banks, which were previously eager to lend money to both developers and home buyers, are now withdrawing, with many of them tightening lending standards. The financial institutions that once thrived off mortgage portfolios are now sitting on massive liabilities, unable to recoup their losses. Many people who once took out home equity loans to fund their businesses or personal ventures are now facing the harsh reality that they can no longer afford to pay those loans back. The debt levels across the region are rising, while the economic outlook is bleak, making it impossible for many to see a way out. For developers, the situation has been nothing short of disastrous. Vancouver was once a city of rapid construction, with cranes dotting the skyline and new residential projects rising almost every week. But now, many of those projects are at a standstill, some even abandoned. Developers who took on large loans and made grand promises to the city are now scrambling to salvage what's left of their portfolios. Bankruptcy filings in the construction sector are climbing rapidly as developers realize they can no longer complete projects or sell properties for a profit. This has only worsened the city's housing shortage, with fewer new units being built and many older units falling into disrepair as developers and investors pull out. As projects stall, thousands of workers in the construction industry are now without jobs. These were often well-paying positions, providing livelihoods for hundreds of tradespeople, project managers, and support staff. Now, these workers are faced with layoffs and unemployment, many struggling to find new work in an already oversaturated job market. The unemployment rate in Vancouver, once among the lowest in Canada, is now rising steadily. This surge in unemployment further compounds the strain on the housing market as those without jobs can no longer afford to buy or rent properties. The ongoing collapse of Vancouver's housing market is also exacerbating the city's affordability crisis. Those who were already struggling to afford a home are now facing even steeper challenges. Rental prices, though still high in many areas, have started to fluctuate as people abandon their property purchases and flood the rental market. With supply low and demand high, some landlords are seeing windfalls, but for the most part, tenants are being squeezed. Many Vancouverites are finding themselves caught in the middle, unable to afford a home of their own, but also unable to secure a decent rental property. With wages stagnant and living costs rising across the board, the middle class is shrinking, and more people are being forced into precarious living conditions. As the crisis deepens, Vancouver's social fabric is starting to unravel. What was once a city known for its inclusivity and diversity is now facing a growing divide between those who have been able to weather the storm and those who are being left behind. Communities that once thrived on the energy of young, professional homeowners are now seeing their residents move away, searching for cheaper alternatives elsewhere in Canada. This exodus is further weakening the city's social structure, with vibrant neighborhoods turning into ghost towns as people are priced out of the market. But the collapse is not limited to just the city of Vancouver itself. The effects of the housing market collapse are already being felt in surrounding cities like Burnaby, Surrey, and Richmond. As the ripple effects move outward, the damage is only growing. Home buyers in these neighboring regions, once hopeful that they could find affordable housing outside of Vancouver proper, are now facing their own struggles. Prices are dropping in these areas as well, and the larger metro area is being pulled into the same crisis. This has created a situation where the entire Lower Mainland region is now suffering from a collapse in housing values, leaving few places for people to turn for relief. The question on everyone's mind is, how bad will this crisis get? While the current housing market collapse has already caused significant damage, the worst may still be ahead. The Canadian government has taken steps to try to stabilize the market, but it is clear that they are too little, too late. Interest rate hikes by the Bank of Canada have only made things worse, increasing the financial burden on homeowners and potential buyers. The foreign buyer ban, which was supposed to slow down the influx of overseas investors into the market, has had little effect, as many investors simply moved their money elsewhere. At this point, the government's ability to address the crisis seems limited. While some measures, such as the foreign buyer ban, may have provided short-term relief, they have not been enough to prevent the market from crashing. Now, many are calling for more drastic measures, such as rent controls or even direct government intervention in the housing market. But these solutions are likely to take years to implement, and by then, the damage may be irreversible. The real threat that looms on the horizon is the possibility of a nationwide recession. Vancouver, once the cornerstone of Canada's real estate market, is now the epicenter of a broader economic collapse. If the city's housing market continues to deteriorate at its current rate, the entire country could be dragged into a recession, with devastating consequences for the economy. It's not just the real estate sector that's at risk, it's the entire fabric of the Canadian economy. If Vancouver's housing market continues to freefall, we could see a wave of bankruptcies, job losses, and financial hardship that would reverberate across the nation. And the longer the government delays action, the worse the situation will become. The risk of a broader economic collapse grows with each passing day, and without a clear plan to address the root causes of the crisis, Vancouver's housing market and Canada's economy as a whole could face a long, painful road to recovery. The question remains, will Vancouver recover? Will the city bounce back from this crisis? Or is this the beginning of a larger, more catastrophic economic collapse? Only time will tell, but the situation is dire. The next few months will be crucial in determining whether Vancouver can stabilize or whether it will continue its downward spiral. In the meantime, Vancouver's residents are left to pick up the pieces of their shattered dreams. If you've been following this crisis closely, be sure to leave a comment below with the word #1 to show your support, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel to stay up to date on the latest developments. The Vancouver housing market may still have more shocks in store, and you won't want to miss the next update.